what should be the most important things, what are the most important things that we should be taking into consideration in order to placement. So I come from Coding Ninjas, right? And the placement talk that I'm about to give is mostly going to be associated with IT industry. I will also try to put forward my insights on the other industries if I have any relevant knowledge about it. But let's go ahead full-fledged on the IT domain. So whenever we talk about placement, okay, whenever we talk about placement, what do we understand from it? So from placement, we understand a job opportunity which is given by our college to us. Right, that is what we understand. So by the time you come to your third year of college, or maybe the last year of college, you will be getting an opportunity to work in some company, which is going to be some sort of company that has visited your college campus and is looking to hire students. So your college provides the list of the students that are studying in that college, and then the companies, they have their own procedure of hiring, and then they hire students from that college, and that is what we call a placement. That is what we understand as placement. But I think this definition of placement was very true up to like probably 5 to 6 years from today. But if we look at the placement word today placement is hustling in order to get a job, or in order to get your first job. That is what placement means today. It can be from your college, it can be outside your college, it can be having your own job opportunity by yourself, it can be literally anything. So let's talk about how we can create job opportunities for ourselves, or how we can hunt job opportunities in the market. So the first things first about getting any sort of job opportunity, which is probably all of you already know, that is having the right amount of skill set. Okay, having the right skills is the only required criteria which should be needed in order for you to get a job. Okay, so now that I can see most of the students who have joined today's session are from first year or second year or even third year of college, or even if you're in last year of college, I think it's a good time, or it's a great time to be very honest, wherein you can take, or you can upstand a mindset which can really help you by the time you reach the last year of your college, or by the time you're in third year of your college, you can see your career building up right in front of you. Okay, so like I said, that I'm mostly going to talk about in the IT industry. So I'll be telling you what are the right things or the right steps that you must take in order to withstand, or in order to score a nice internship or a placement opportunity by the time you finish your college life. So first things first, LPU is a good college. It's a good college. Good students in LPU definitely get good placements. They get good job opportunities by good companies. Now the question is, are you that good student? Right? Are you that good student? Even if you are into IIT or something like that, you will always see students who did not get the best job opportunity that they deserve. That is because they didn't work hard enough. But if you can work hard enough, you can be that good student who can sweep out all the good opportunities for yourself. Now, how do you become that great student? How do you become that person who is eligible or skilled enough in order to get good job opportunities? First things first, try your level best to not have any backlogs. Okay, any active backlogs can reduce your chances of getting shortlisted. So try, first things first, try to avoid having any active backlogs, because most of your first year, I mean, you might be in an impression that I never failed in my life, so I should never get a backlog. That is true. I mean, that's really good, but you have to work a little harder in order to not get a backlog, because sometimes engineering subjects can be something which you will not understand at all. So being very honest, in my college life also, I have also saved myself just from like this much amount of marks from failing. But thankfully, I never failed, or I never got a backlog. I got a question from Yamuna, does really CGPA matter? No, no, CGPA does not matter that much. Having a backlog matters. CGPA does not matter that much, but having a backlog can create issues for you. So don't try to have any backlogs at all. Okay, so if you are really, really skilled, but if you have a backlog, that can completely make things outside your favor, outside your favorable condition. So even if you have right skills, but if you have an active backlog, it can be a troublesome scenario. So try to avoid backlogs. That is the first and the most important advice that I will give. Now everything is about what are the things to study. Okay, so most of you who are present here, tell me how many of you have started to code, or if you are thinking of starting to code, and if you have started, and what language are you using? Can you write that down in the chat box? Newbie Python. Okay, C++. I got two. 1 second. I got two reappears, but I cleared it. Is that a problem? No, no, if you have cleared, then that's not an issue. Active, I'm saying active backlog should not be there. Started in C and C++, okay? Java, I mean, I think you wanted to say Java. Okay, started C++, C++, Java, CPP, Python, CPP, C++, Python, HTML, CSS, C language. Well, I would not consider HTML and CSS as programming languages, Dheeraj, but okay. C sharp, okay. Python, C, Java, all three languages, Samrat, okay. C++, C and Python, C, CPP, Java, Python, Java, okay. I know JS, React, HTML, CSS, MERN. Well, if you had just mentioned that you knew MERN, that covers JS, React, HTML, and CSS. So that's okay. Python, Java, Java, C++, what is minimum CGPA that we want? Okay, I'll answer to all of these questions. By the end of the session, I will be having a nice Q&A session where you can pour in your questions, and I will be trying my level best in order to answer each and every question. So that's okay. Mostly okay. I can see a lot of you are going ahead with C++, Java, Python, all three. Well, that is good. The best part is that you have already started to program. So that is one good thing that I can see. Okay. Voice issue. Am I not very clearly audible? Am I not very clearly audible? Bhupendra, can you please
audible, sir.
Okay. No, somebody just mentioned, yeah, somebody just mentioned that there was voice issue. So I just wanted. Okay. Thanks, Bhupendra. All right. So I was talking to you about what are the things, I mean, your programming languages. So first things first, very good that you've started to program. That's really good that you've started to program, because usually this is the first challenge that people have to face. Many of you might have had a little bit of coding experience from your school. Many of you might not have had any coding experience from your school. So people who don't usually have any coding experience from school, it usually becomes a very big problem for them. But anyway, it's really good to see that you have started to program. For people who are programming in C, it will be my suggestion that you move to C++. The reason is that C is a procedure-oriented programming language and C++ is object-oriented programming language. So it is in an industry standard to use object-oriented programming. That is the reason why I would suggest you to move from C to C++. Okay. In order to become a nice coder, think about how you got good at mathematics, or think about how you got good at the language that you speak. Okay, so how did we good at the language that we speak? Or let me just ask you, how did we become good at speaking in English? So ever since we were kids, probably we learned the first language that was being spoken at our home. So for you, it can be Punjabi, Hindi, Marathi, Gujarati, Bengali, Sindhi, or Kannada, Tamil, Telugu, Malayalam. It can be any language for you, right? The native language that you learned when you were a kid at home. Okay, but when you started to go to school, that was probably the first time that most of us were exposed to English, right? So when we went to school, we started to learn with alphabets in English. And then we got to know what are pronouns in English, nouns in English, part of speech in English. Then we got to move ahead a little bit. Then we got introduced to grammar. Then we got slightly more advanced. And then we started to understand about sentences, complex sentences, simple sentences, compound sentences, modals, active speech, passive speech, all of these things we understood. And then today we are so proficient in English that we are communicating right now in English, which is a foreign language for all of us, right? You guys are writing your chats in English. Our phones are running on English. Our laptops are running on English, right? All the communication that we do, we write essays in English, emails in English, everything that we write in English. So how did this process became, or how did we become so fluent in English? The reason is that because we were constantly being exposed to it, right? It was a need of an hour in order to become good at English, right? So that is the same thing that will also bring about when you are trying to learn programming. So the more you expose yourself to programming, the better you will get at it. Okay, just learning something and then keeping it at bay does not help, because retention inside our minds is low. Okay, so the most important thing is that when you study something, try to be in practice with it. So when you're programming in C or C++ or Java or in Python, try to make sure that first of all, you learn all the important concepts. Learning important concepts will include what are the basic data types in languages like C, C++, Java, like int, short, long, Boolean, what do we have? Double float, big integer in Java, other things like that. Try to understand all of those things. After that, try to move towards slightly more complicated data structures like arrays, what are loops, what are conditional statements. So first of all, the first step always has to be understanding the basic of one programming language. A lot of people, when by the time they're in first year, a lot of you might be having a misconception that the more languages I learn, the better it is for me, which is not true. It is not true. It is not important that you know more languages and it increases your chances of getting shortlisted. It is not true. It is all about knowing one language, but knowing it really nicely. Okay, that is most important. So you focus on C++ or Java or Python. I would personally suggest focusing on C++ or Java only, not Python, because Python is one of those languages which gives you a lot of freedom. I mean, not saying that Python is a bad language. To be very honest, in my current role, I do work on a lot of Python. But the thing with Python is that I personally believe that Python is for those people who understand programming really well. And if Python is your first programming language, you may miss out on a lot of important programming concepts that you may need to know, or especially in that cases when you're trying, or suppose when you have gotten a job, there's a very high chance that you will be moved to a job which is working on Java or JavaScript. And in that certain moment, if you don't understand the basics of programming, you can be in a very dire situation, because Python gives you a lot of freedom, but other languages may not give you that much amount of freedom. So that can be one issue which you might have to face, because of which I am suggesting that you start with either C++ or Java. But if you've already started with Python, if you're confident enough in your skills in Python, then you can go ahead and continue with Python also. So the first step always is going to be getting to be better at one programming language. Only knowing one programming language very nicely is enough. That is the first thing that you should do. Okay, so that is, once you're done with that, then you move ahead to try and understanding data structures and how to implement these data structures in your programming language. How to implement them in C. Or if you're writing code in C, then go for C, go for C++, Java. Try to understand the data structures and try to implement them in your programming language. That is C++ or Java or Python, whatever language you're using. Okay, try to implement it in your programming language. Now, what are the data structures that are very important? The data structures that are very important would be arrays. Okay, arrays are very, 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 very important. Arrays will be very important. Strings will be very important. Apart from that, you will see that linked list is going to be very important. Then stacks are going to be very important. Queue are going to be very important. Then after that, you will see trees. In trees, there are multiple types of trees. So among these multiple types of trees, there is a type of tree called binary search tree, which is going to be very, very important. And then you will see that things like graphs, where there are multiple types of graph, directed graph, undirected graph, and things like that. So you will have to know things about graphs as well. Now, this is about data structures. These are the data structures that are present and are very widely used in the industries. Okay. Yes, Neeraj, heaps also. Heaps also. Thank you for reminding me. Heaps is also an important data structure to remember. Now let's move ahead to algorithms. Now, let me just ask you, what is an algorithm? So, Abhijit, I've already mentioned tree, binary search tree. So let me just talk to you about algorithm. So the basis of algorithm is basically a step-by-step approach in order to do something. Suppose if your dad is coming back home, and if your dad is tired and he asks you, hey, can you make me a cup of tea? Or suppose you want to make tea for yourself. What do? The first step would probably be to go to kitchen. Then the second step is probably take some tea and add it to water and boil the water with tea, right? The third step is, if you like to add milk, then add milk, right? The fourth step is like, if you like to add sugar, then add sugar. The fifth step is cook the tea a little bit, let it boil, let it spread across the water. And the sixth step is pour the tea with the filter. And then the seventh step would be to drink the tea, right? So it is a step-by-step approach in order to make tea and drink it, right? Similarly, if we want to achieve any sort of task in computer also, we have to write some sort of algorithm. Suppose if we want to add two numbers, okay, then what we will do? We will take the first number, then we will take the second number, and then we will add it. And then let's say we will print it. So it is also an algorithm. So every step-by-step approach is an algorithm. Every single step-by-step approach is an algorithm. In the world of computer science, we have standardized a few algorithms. So when you start learning algorithms, it will start, especially when you will start learning arrays. When you start learning arrays, once you come into array, you will see that there are different types of methods inside an array. Like there is a method of searching inside an array. Then there can be a method of sorting an array. Okay, then there can be other types of methods as well. But usually you will see searching techniques or sorting methods. Okay, that is searching techniques and sorting methods. Let me just give you one very quick question. Okay, one very quick question. Even if you don't know the answer to it, there's nothing to worry about. It's going to be easy, by the way. So anybody who has done even slight amount of programming, I personally think that you should be able to answer it. Anyway, let me just ask you this question. Suppose you have been given an array of integers. Okay, if you have been given an array of integers, for people who do not understand what is an array, the easiest way to think what an array is to think what a list is. So suppose if you have been given an array of numbers or a list of numbers, tell me how will you find out the largest number in that array? So anybody who would like to write it in the chat box, or you can also raise your hand. Maybe we can temporarily make you the co-host in order to speak up. So Chandan says binary search, max. Well, all the people who are writing max, it's a inbuilt Python code, right? Inbuilt Python function. So that's the reason why you're writing max. Binary search. Okay, Rohan. Well, okay, fine. Linear and binary search. Okay. Dipendra. Okay. Using loop. Okay. Looping through the indexes and assigning. Okay. Linear search. Okay. If A of I greater than B. Okay. We would take int res equals 0 and then apply loop if we find big, no update res. Okay, Amish, fine. Rajiv is saying bubble sort. Choose one number, compare it to the next number, change the large number, and so on. Okay. Okay, so I can see a few responses in the chat box. First response is max function. So to everybody who's writing the max function, can you also tell me how does the max function work? Because max is an internal function in Python, okay, which is not present in other languages like JavaScript or Java or C++, which definitely makes your work easier. But if you don't know how max function work, then technically your programming concept has gone weaker. And that is the reason why I don't suggest Python as the first language to learn as a programmer. Okay, so that is the reason why I don't suggest Python to be the first language for people to learn. But if you like Python, if you understand how things works, then it can be a really good language for you. But usually as a starter, people don't put in a lot of effort in order to learn something which already works, because they just draw conclusions that, okay, if I write something like this, then something like that should happen. But you should ask yourself why. Why is that happening? Okay, so for people who are writing max function, it is correct, definitely. Max will give you the correct answer, but I would also encourage you in order to understand how it works internally. Okay, then the second approach, I saw people who said binary search. Now, first things first, if we want to do binary search only works on an array which is sorted in nature. Okay, it will only work on an array which is sorted. So if your array is already sorted, you can just take out the last element out of it and it is your largest element. So you don't even have to apply binary search. Right. Third thing. So before I go to the third thing, which the binary search approach makes it a wrong answer, because binary search can only be applied on a sorted array, and our array may or may not be sorted. If it is sorted, then there's no point of doing binary search only. Now let's move to the next point. That is some people writing bubble sort. Okay, so bubble sort is a sorting algorithm. Okay, so bubble sort, in the best case, it will take n log n time to sort the array. So bubble sort is the right way. I mean, definitely it will give you the right answer. So you can sort the array, take out the last element out of it, and then your job is done. So this will give you a correct answer in the best time complexity of O of n log n. Now let's come back to the last method, which some people were saying that we can use a linear search, or like take some variable as 0 or as a very small number and then keep comparing every element by using a for loop. And then we will be getting the largest element by the time the loop ends. Okay, so this is also a correct approach, and this will also be giving us a correct answer. Okay, so this will also be giving us a correct answer. So in this last approach, by using a loop, technically what is happening is that for running a loop once, okay, the time complexity would be O of n. So O of n definitely happens to be lesser than O of n log n, which makes the fourth approach better than the third approach. You were getting the correct answer in third approach as well as the fourth approach, but fourth approach happens to be better. Let me just give you one quick example. So your college is in Jalandhar, right? Your college is in Jalandhar, Punjab, right? So your college is in Jalandhar, Punjab. Let's say that you have to travel from Jalandhar, Punjab to Delhi. You have to travel from Jalandhar to New Delhi. If you have to travel from Jalandhar to New Delhi, there are multiple options. You can take a road also. You can take like a cab. You can go by train. You can go by plane. There are multiple ways with the help of which you can go. Now tell me which is the fast. If you are in really hurry to reach from Jalandhar to Delhi, what is the way we will take? Will you take a train? Will you take a plane? Or will you take a car? Right? So like most of you are saying plane. Now why is plane? Because plane is the fastest. Just like that, people will choose the fourth approach over the third one. Okay, just only because of that, people will be using the fourth approach over the third one. So now we had a very nice discussion that which algorithm can give us the answer and cannot give us the answer. And then we also compared all of those algorithms which could give us the answer. So this is the crux of algorithms. That is, we understand how different algorithms work. So whenever you're studying arrays, you will see binary search and linear search as searching algorithms. And then in sorting, you will see there are many sorting algorithms. So out of many sorting, important to learn each and every sorting algorithm, but it would be my suggestion that you learn a few searching algorithms. Let me just write them down in the chat box, which can really help you in the future. So you can start learning quick sort, then you can start learning merge sort, and then heap sort. Yes, these three sorting algorithms are something which will really help you in your algorithm journey. So quick sort, merge sort, and heap sort. All of these three are three separate sorting algorithms. Okay, these are three separate sorting algorithms. And to be very honest, if you have to sort an array, then in Python also we have a function of sorting the array. In Java also we have arrays.sort function in order to sort an array. In C++ also we have internal functions in order to sort an array. Can anybody tell me which sorting algorithm is used in order to sort an array in any language internally? Anyone? Which algorithm is used? Okay, Amish is saying quick sort. Okay. Binary sort. There is nothing called binary sort, Hitesh. Intro sort. That is not true, Abdullah. Bubble sort. That is not true. BTS. What is BTS? I know BTS as the band, but I'm not sure if that is an algorithm as well. Nikhil is saying merge sort. Well, that is correct. Merge sort. Merge sort is used in some languages. Even heap sort is used, but in majority languages you will see merge sort being used. Okay, so now the reason why I'm asking you to learn merge sort or heap sort or quick sort, despite the fact that you can always get your array sorted by using the internal functions, is because when you're solving multiple questions or when you're trying to devise an algorithm for a certain task that you have to do, the concepts that you get while learning merge sort or heap sort or quick sort, they can be utilized in many different places as well. So if you modify merge sort slightly, it can be a solution to a very complicated problem. The same also goes with heap sort. The same also goes with quick sort. So even though quick sort is not internally or is not the best algorithm to sort an array, the understanding that you will get by learning quick sort, it can be utilized at many places. That is the reason why people suggest learning quick sort as well. Other sorting algorithms like insertion sort or bubble sort, they also help, but not as much as quick sort, merge sort, and heap sort. That is the reason why I was trying to point out that quick sort, merge sort, and heap sort would be the important ones to learn. Okay, now let's move towards, now that we've already spoken about arrays, now let's talk about strings. So the same concepts that we learned in arrays will also be utilized in string. Okay, quick sort is preferred over sorting an array, and merge sort is preferred over sorting linked lists. That is not true, Abkari. That is, I mean, there's nothing like that. Quick sort is not preferred for sorting an array because quick sorts best, I mean, in the worst case, the time complexity of quick sort is n square, and which is greater than n log n, which is given by merge sort. So in every case, merge sort happens to be a more preferred way to sort rather than quick sort. So merge sort is the answer always. Is there inbuilt function of sorting in Java? Yes, there is a function. There's a class called arrays, and it has a static method called sort. So if you write something like this, 1 second, let me just write it in the chat. Arrays.sort, and then inside that you pass your array, so it will sort it. It was sorted by pass by reference, not pass by value. So it does not return anything. Okay, so I was talking about sorting. So now that you're done with arrays and all of these algorithms that I was talking about, you will have a strong hold. You will have, I mean, by this time, you will start understanding how computer science or how programming works. You will have a really good idea. You will start becoming, or you will start understanding every single thing or every single piece of code that you're writing. Okay, once this is done, you move to strings. So strings are also very similar to array. They use exactly the same concepts that arrays are using. Then you move towards slightly more difficult or more different data structure, which is linked list in our case. Okay, so to implement linked list, different languages have different techniques. So if you're coming from C or C++, especially in C, you can use struct or you can use union in order to create a linked list. Similarly, if you're talking about C++, then again, you can use struct or union, but people prefer using class in C++. In Java, there's only one method of using class, or you can also use the inbuilt linked lists that are present in Java inside the collections API. Okay. After that, in Python, again, you have to use classes. Okay. So class Class, CLASS, is a concept of object-oriented programming, which does not exist in C. That is the reason why I was suggesting that you move towards C++ if you're somebody who's using C. You can again create linked list even in C, but you cannot, or you will not be able to grasp the concepts of object-oriented programming until you move to an object-oriented programming language. So these are the ways that we create a linked list. And in linked list, we need to understand a lot of things about how connections work. Okay, so in linked list, you will be getting an understanding of how to inculcate different types of data structures inside one certain class and use it and do pass by reference, things like that. Okay, so this is about linked list. Linked list is comparatively an easier topic. The questions do not become very, very complicated, but you should learn linked list. After that, we come to stacks and queues. Stacks and queues are very straightforward, very, very straightforward. If you know arrays really well, you can also learn stacks and queues. So stacks and queues are again very important to understand and very easy to implement also. So stacks and queues are really, really simple. In stacks, you need to understand what is a stack, then what is a queue, what are the operations, that's it. Stacks and queues are pretty much one of the easiest data structures to get a hold on. Now let's come to the slightly more complicated one, and let's start with trees. Trees is again a very, very important data structure. For somebody who does not understand, is there anybody who does not understand tree? If there is nobody who understands tree, I can give you one small demo or one small insight of how tree looks like. So anybody who does not understand tree, you can raise your hand. Who does not understand? Okay. Okay, I can see people raising their hand. It's like thunder. I mean, yes, definitely. Some trees are like thunder. Okay, so I can see people raising hand. Well, that's not an issue. I will be sharing my screen. Just give me one moment. Just one moment, please. Just a second, I'm sharing my screen. Trees are among my favorite data structures, if you ask me, because they are like the most interesting to work with. So let me just share my screen. Let me know when you can see my Google Chrome. Okay. Can you see my Google Chrome? Yes, no?
No, sir. Yes.
Yes, sir. Now we can see it.
Okay. All right, great. Okay, good. Thanks. Okay, so let's look at this tree. So I've done a Google search of tree. Basically, binary search tree, I've done a Google search. So these are some images that we're getting. So let's talk about real life trees that we look around us. What is there in a real life tree? A real life tree is going to have a root, right? Then it's going to have a stem, and then it's going to have multiple branches. And then in these multiple branches, there are going to be multiple leaves. Now, leaves do not diverge into some another part of the tree. So we can say that leaf is the end point of a tree, right? Because we cannot diverge outside a leaf. Like after leaf, we don't have any other part of the tree, unless you go deeper into xylem, phloem, stomata, and things like that. So I'm not here to learn botany, definitely, but would be interested in some other session. But you get what I'm saying, that after a leaf, you don't really see something coming up inside a tree. So this tree in computer science that we talk about, it is like a normal tree only, but it's just like inverted. Okay, so technically what happens that all the rounds that you're seeing, all the circles that you're seeing, it is called a node. Okay, all the circles that you're seeing. So this is a circle. So 8 is inside a circle. Similarly, 3 is inside a circle, 1 is inside a circle, 6 is inside a circle. So each of these circles are called nodes, N-O-D-E, node, N-O-D-E, node. Each of these circles is called a node. Okay, so every node is capable of having 3 things, 1 data and 2 children. Okay, so this node, this round that we have, this circle that we have, it is a node, its data is 8. Okay, and then it can have 2 children, so one on the left side, and the second on the right side. Okay, so one on the left side and the second on the right side. So this in a binary search tree, because of the word binary, it means 2. So technically what happens is that every node is capable of having at most 2 children only. Okay, it is capable of having at most 2 children. So it just basically means that. So now it can have a left child and a right child, right? So the rules in a binary search tree is that if a node is, or if like this, if the left child of the node will always be having a value less than the parent. So in this case, 3 is the child of 8, 10 is the child of 8, then 1 is the child of 3 and a grandchild of 8, and 6 is the child of 3. Okay, similarly, 14 is the child of 10, 4 is the child of 6, and 7 is also the child of 6, 13 is the child of 14. Okay, so technically what happens is that whenever we are talking about binary search trees, then the left child is always going to contain a value less than the value of the parent. Like in this case, 3 is less than 8. That is why 3 is on the left of 8. Okay, and for the right side, it is the opposite. So if the value of the right child, or if there is a node whose value is greater than or equal to the parent, then it will always become the right child. Okay, because 10 is greater than 8, that's why the node with 10 is on the right side of 8. Similarly, 1 is lower than 3, that is why 1 is on left, but 6 is on right. Similarly, 4 is on left, 7 is on right, 13 is on left. Okay, all the nodes that do not have any children, like 1, 4, 7, 13, these are some nodes that don't have any children at all. So they are called leaf nodes because the tree is ending over there. The tree does not diverge after this. So this is called leaf node. Okay, so this is all. That's all about trees. Now, anybody who still does not understand what is trees, how can we find the height of the tree? You can find out the height of the tree by traversing from the root node to the leaf node and keep calculating the maximum until you have traversed all the leaf nodes. So will you please talk about heaps, tree insertion and deletion? Well, it's okay, not that difficult. Well, Abkari, I can talk about it, but I'm not sure if we have enough time about that, because it's gonna be a long session for that. Is networking and trees same? No, tree is a data structure. Networking is not a data structure. Networking is a concept. Okay, it is a concept that we use in order to establish networks. So in networking, we have TCP/IP layers, OSI models, TCP/IP model. There are different things. UDP is there, APIPA is there. Many things are there. So networking is a totally new domain. You will have, if you're from computer science, there is a separate subject called computer networks. That is what networking is. So if you want to talk about networking, better idea about networking would be graphs. Graphs is a better or more closer to networking than trees. Okay, so I'll stop sharing my screen and I'll get back to you. So in trees, like we just learned about trees, so in trees, there are 3 very popular algorithms called pre-order, post-order, and post-order, and in-order. These are 3 very popular algorithms in trees. Also, there are 2 more algorithms called depth-first search and breadth-first search. So these are 2 more algorithms that you should know in order to be, sorry about that, in order to be good at trees. Okay, so that was about trees. Now we'll come to the last data structure which is relevant. That is going to be graphs. So graph is very complicated. It's not a very easy data structure, but because it is very complicated, people will not expect a lot of tough questions from you to answer it in graphs. Okay, so even if you just know 2 algorithms in graph called depth first search and breadth first search, you should be able to answer mostly the questions that they will ask on a fresher level. So that was about graphs. Okay, so this is about what are the important things that you should study. Okay, and apart from just studying it, you should also be consistently staying in practice with them. So in order to stay in practice with them, you can practice all of these questions on Code Studio. It's a good platform where you can solve multiple questions consistently and basically improve your understanding of topics and see where your code is going wrong, what are the improvements you can do, things like that. So that is what I would suggest in order to keep in touch with your subjects that you're studying or with the things that you're studying. Okay, so this is really, really important in order to understand data structures and algorithms in one programming language in order to go for internships or placement opportunities in any major company. Okay, in any major company. So now I was saying that people had some doubts about creating projects and technologies or languages. So if now I will open the board for Q&A. So if anybody has any questions, please, you can go ahead and ask me. I can already see Shubham with one question. So for product-based company, how much data structure we have to know? All the things that I mentioned, you have to know. All the things. Apart from that, there's one thing called dynamic programming, which is also something that you should know. Will hash maps be asked about? Yes, hash maps is also a hashing technique. It's an optimization technique, which will also be a part of algorithms. Yes, that is also something that you should know. Hash maps will be asked. Sir, does degree matter that much? Well, being very honest, in India, it does. Sad news is it does. Being very honest, brutally honest, it does matter. It doesn't matter a lot, but it does matter. How different is EC placements from CSE? Well, EC is electronic sector. So in EC, based on my current understanding, companies like Samsung, AMD, Nvidia, Qualcomm, Intel, these are some really good companies which are hiring for EC. So if you get a placement in EC department, In electronic sector, you will mostly be working on VLSI models or simulations and things like that. But if you come into CSE, definitely there are multiple fields in CSE. You can be a software engineer, you can be an analyst, you can be a database administrator, you can be a cloud support associate, you can be a Power BI developer. Depends on what profile you get. But definitely lives will be very different. How much question we have to practice until you become good at it. It's the same thing like how much question I should practice to be good at maths, or how much English do I speak in order to be good at English. There's no right answer to it. It's until as much as you can. That's the right answer. Having good skills with low CGPA is fine. Well, having extremely low CGPA is not fine because you would not even get a chance to show your skills. Because if companies don't allow you to sit, you don't get a chance to show your skills. So if you have any CGPA above 7.5, you should be good to go. Java, C++, or Kotlin. It's a tough call, but because I code in Java, I will always prefer Java. But I know C++ is also a good language. One good thing about learning Java is that if you learn Java, it will also help you after you have joined a job. If you know C++, it doesn't help you after you've joined your job, because in companies, very, very few projects will use C++, or almost no project will use C++. If you join a company, there's a very, very high chance that they will want you to learn Java. So that is one plus point of knowing Java. All the people who are in college, or at least when I was in college, they used to complain about Java. Oh my God, I have to write such long syntax in Java. But now they are writing Java only. So I just feel like that you could have just learned Java when you were in college. Well, anyway, any language is fine. Java is my favorite language, so I always talk about Java. I always prefer Java. If you have any questions on Java in future for me, please feel free to discuss. I love talking about Java. So that's about Java. Kotlin is like, if you know Java, you also know Kotlin. So no big deal. Is 12th percentage matter in sitting for placement? Somewhat, not that much. If you are above 75 or 70, or even 65, I think it's more than enough. Can you provide some YouTube channel for DSA? If you want some good content for DSA, you can always come to Coding Ninjas. That is something I would suggest. But for some good YouTube channel, being very honest, I don't check out these YouTube channels. I think on LinkedIn, you'll find people who are really advocate about LinkedIn channels. So that would be a better place to ask this question. Basics of language, data structures, and algorithms, are these enough for placement? Yes, they are enough. They are enough. You can always do more than this, but they are enough. Minimum CGPA for placement in good company, 7.5 or above. How many hours after college should we prepare? As much as you can. I mean, whatever you think is right for yourself. It's like that. If you can achieve good amounts of output in 1 hour only, then that is fine. Some people may need 3 hours, 4 hours. It depends on you. Okay, there's no right answer to this kind of question. And being very honest, this answering these kind of questions will make you something which follows a protocol. So technically, you should adjust plans, or you should follow things that work for you, not something that works for somebody else. Like maybe in my case, I could code for like 2 hours a day and it worked for me. But maybe in your case, it might require 4 hours also. It can also need 30 minutes also. So it's just something that you should figure out by yourself, that how much time you need, how much time you need to give. Because if I tell you 4 hours, but if you're not able to take out 4 hours, then it doesn't make any sense. Right. So this is something that you should figure out on yourself. I can tell you what to do, but now it's your task to do it in your own way. Okay. Artificial intelligence or data science? Well, either of them are really good. So technically, they both are really, really nice. But giving you a little bit and look into the reality, getting a job in data science or artificial intelligence is a little bit difficult as a fresher, because companies usually look out for people who have some years of experience, or they have some master's degree or some sort of certification. So getting a first job in artificial intelligence or data science is going to be difficult. I won't say it's impossible. It is difficult. It will be slightly difficult. So you'll need to have a little bit more patience. So talk about communication skills for placement. I mean, it's really important. It is really, really important, usually in the HR round. Apart from just having the HR round, when you're sitting in your placement opportunity, especially in interviews, having the right thought is the first and foremost the most important thing. That is getting the right answers in your head. But you should also be good at communicating your answers. Like what is even I'll give you one example. When you were at school, I'm pretty sure you must know at least one teacher at school who was really, really knowledgeable, but was not able to explain. Right? Did you know of any such teacher? If yes, raise your hand. When you were at school, there was at least one teacher whom you knew who was very smart or who was very knowledgeable, but was not able to explain things properly, was not the best communicator. And because he or she was not the best communicator, students did not enjoy his or her teaching that much. So if you're not good at communication, you are that person. So you may know the most important concepts really well, but if you're not able to communicate, the interviewer is not going to get this idea that you're a good or skilled person. So communication skill is very, very important. So if you are coming from any background wherein you have had issues with talking or any sort of communicating issue, then I think you should practice. To be very honest, based on the place where I come from, I have had to face a lot of backlash because I was always trying to be good at communication. Speaking in English was something that people don't find very comfortable with. I mean, if you talk in English at stage or in front of a teacher, then it's okay. But if you're talking to your colleague in English, or if you're talking to your classmate in English, or if you're talking to your maybe whosoever in English, then people start to judge you. Or this is what I have faced in my personal life, that people start to judge you, they start mocking you, they start saying that you're pretending to be somebody else, or they start to give you some sort of backlash, right? But don't let this affect you, because at the end of the day, your good communication will be something that you can leverage and become better than those criticizers in your life, and be better than them. So it's basically just that. So the reason why I'm able to communicate with all of you is because I did not listen to them. And I personally think that the place where you come from, I think this is an issue that you may also face, maybe not face that much as much I faced it, but this kind of issue persists. So you'll need to make your willpower strong enough to like go through this backlash, to get through this backlash and still do your own thing. That is very important. Okay, embedded systems. Well, it's a thing about electronics. So definitely that is something you can see in electronics. I'm good at web development. Should I have to move to these C++, Python, DSA to contribute Python web development? I think you should do both, Aditya, because definitely if you're good at web development, that is great. But in order to showcase your companies, or like in order to get a good job, you should also be good at C++, Python, or at least DSA. Basically, you should be good at DSA. So if you're doing web development, I'm assuming that you know JavaScript as well. So if you know JavaScript, I mean, you can do DS in JavaScript also. That is also totally all right. The reason why I'm suggesting is that if you're good at web development, then in web development, what do we have? Front end and back end. So there will be scenarios when you will have to optimize code. You'll have to optimize code. So in optimization, the concept of data structures and algorithms will only become important. The reason why Paytm is so fast, at making UPI transactions, but other UPI apps are slightly slow, is because they're able to write data structures and algorithms in order to optimize their app so nicely that they can convert milliseconds into microseconds. Sorry, milliseconds into nanoseconds. So it is that, okay, and that is what makes a great programmer. So DSA is important. It is definitely important. Having good web development skills are like add-on skills, like bonus for the companies, but having good DSA is very important. Sir, average how many questions asked in coding rounds? Usually 2 to 3, not more than that. Any websites to practice our programming skills? Code Forces is good. Code Studio is also good. Is 12% matter in setting for placement? For some companies, yes. But if you're anywhere above 65 above, then I think it should not be an issue for you. How hard it is to get 8 CGPA plus in first year? Well, it depends on your college. In my college, it was very difficult. In some colleges, I see that they keep on throwing 9.5 plus to everybody. So it depends on your college. Java is my favorite. Same, my favorite too. 90% company use Java. I'm a Java lover. Same, Java, hail Java. Basics of language, data structures, and algorithms are these enough? I've already answered this question. Is it important to have good ranking in coding platforms like CodeChef? Well, Neeraj, it is not important to have good ranking, but it is important to have the skill. Like at the very start, I mentioned that if you have the skill, it is enough. Okay, so the only rating or the only star that matters is you. That's the only star that matters. So focus on yourself. I mean, if you have the ratings, that's great. Even if you don't have the ratings, but if you have the skill, that is also fine. Like personally, I don't have any ratings on any coding platform, but I was still able to get a nice job for myself. That was because I had the skills. So even if you don't have any ranking, that's okay. Please provide some YouTube channels to learn coding. Please connect with me on LinkedIn and I will give you some YouTube channels over there. Can I go for DS in Java without having much? Yes, absolutely. I went straight forward to DS in Java without even having much knowledge in C++. I mean, the only thing that I can do in C++ is to translate C++ code into Java. That's it. That's all I can do. If you give me some code to write in C++, I will not be able to write because I don't know C++ very well. But I can still do it in Java. All my life, all the DS that I have done is in Java only. So if I can do it, you can also do it. Even if I'm not in any NIT or IIT, can I learn from them? Can I earn more? Yes, you can. You can earn more from them. What are mathematical concepts are really important? Set theory is going to be important. And apart from that, I think knowing the concepts of permutation combinations will be important. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Matrix multiplication, important. Yeah, these are pretty much it. Is Kotlin going to replace Java in future? I don't see that happening. The only place where it can replace Java is Android development. So for native Android application development, people do prefer Kotlin over Java. But in other places like creating web frameworks or financial applications, I think Java is going to stay for a very, 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 very long time. Very long time. I am not seeing Java going away for like next 25 years, for sure. And Java is the oldest player in the industry. So it has still never gotten out of style. And it is still improving and it is still getting better and better only. And people are still loving Java. And being very honest, even today, Java is able to provide best levels of security into any application. So all the fintech applications that you're using, like Paytm, PhonePe, I'm not sure about Google Pay, but Paytm, PhonePe, or Amazon Pay, or Bharat Pay. So these companies use Java only because of the instantaneous amount of security and great speed. Java is among the fastest backends that you write today, and Python is among the slowest, consequently. So people prefer Java over languages like these, but not always, because in many cases Python is more convenient and more utility wise to write. So there are plus and minus for each, but I don't see Java going away in the near future at all. I've already answered the question for getting DSA in Java. Okay, basics of a language data, I've already answered. Is Kotlin. Why are you asking the same question over and over again? Because I'm going through every question. Nothing, no, they say zyada English hard, right? Yes, they say that. They will say that, and they will make this worse if you keep continue to talk in English. I have had the worst experiences in my life getting to deal with the criticism because of only talking in English. But anyway, it doesn't matter. In the coming 5 to 10 years, will the current jobs, demanded jobs, will be the same as demand, or its value will decrease? If yes, which are the jobs that will be at the top? In the next 5 to 10 years, I think AR and VR will be really good job opportunities. Backend or web is not going anywhere because web is still going to be at the top. ML will definitely be there. So I think the only new job opportunities that will be coming on the top is AR, VR. That's what I think. And apart from that, a lot of analytics wise tools will come up on the industry. Salesforce is going to stay, and then Java is going to stay. Backend is going to stay for a very long time. REST may be replaced by GraphQL. These kind of things you may expect in the 5 to 10 years of time. Basis, okay, I've already answered this question. Any websites to practice the programs will already answer this question. PPO roadmap in BCA. Well, it's the same as any other, it's the same as IT or CS engineering. You be good at programming, you give your interview, you get selected, and then that's it. That's the same. They would not differentiate between a BCA student and an IT student as long as you have the relevant skills. Could you suggest something how to be good at web development? To be good at web development, I would personally suggest try to learn a little bit of DSA, because learning DSA is going to help you optimize the code. And at the end of the day, we want everything to be optimized. Okay, so optimization is very important factor of web development. So if you are good at data structures algorithms, you will be good at optimization, and that will make you a better web developer. Apart from that, to become good at web development, try to learn a little bit about web security, like tokens, how to implement tokens, how to decrypt or encrypt a token, how to make sure that the token is not stolen. So these are like some web security related things. Then try to learn REST APIs, create RESTful frameworks, create a separate front-end server, back-end server, try to create interactions with them. This is going to become a really good web development project. Apart from that, use latest practices like using object-oriented programming, serialization, deserialization, bcrypt password encoder, things like that, implementing social authentication by using Google OAuth or Facebook OAuth, things like that. This can help you to become a much better web developer. Is development round in development, can I write algo round in C++? I don't understand your question. In development, can I write algo round in C++? You can write algorithms in C++ definitely, but in development, what will you develop in C++? That's the question. Now I don't know anything other than Python. Should I move to CPP Java, or is it okay? If you know only Python, that is fine. But I would personally suggest that you you understand why Python works the way it works. Okay, because I have seen people who start learning Python, they directly jump to conclusions that acha, a is equals to 5 likhne se a is equals to 5 ho jata hai. But why is it a? Why is a an integer only? Okay, you need to understand how Python is working. Python is an interpreted language. It is not a compiled and interpreted language. Because of this, the behavior of Python is very different from other languages like Java and C++. So I will only suggest one thing: you learn whatever language you want, but always learn it in depth. Okay, because with Python, people start learning Python, they find, oh my god, it's very easy, and then they think that they can do anything, and when they start coding, then they think, oh my god, this is not exactly what I thought, or this is something that I can't understand. So with that is an issue with Python or people who learn Python. I personally, I find Python easy because I come from Java. So because I know Java, so I know concepts of programming well, or at least well enough in order to use them in an easier fashion in Python. That is an advantage that I come from, coming from a stricter language to an easier language. But for you who starts with Python, moving upwards is going to be difficult. So it's like moving downstream and upstream. It's like that only. So if you think, or if you are still early in your stages in Python, you can shift to C++ or Java. But if you've already made a lot of progress, then I think you should stick to Python only. Please share your LinkedIn profile. Yeah, sure. I will be sharing it by the time I finish the session. Okay. And can we get your LinkedIn ID? Yes, I will. I will share. Probability, yes, probability is again going to be an important mathematics topic. Can you tell me something on internship to PPO? Well, it depends on company to company. It is usually about performing really well. That's it. Attendance link, please. Okay, that is already there. I am from biotech branch. Does company consider me or equivalent to? Yes, they will. They will consider you equivalent only. Don't worry about it. Companies don't really care that much about branch. Some companies do. I don't know why, but some companies do. But for those companies who don't, they will not make a distinguish. They will not be distinguishing between you and a CS student. Are there good future aspects for Flutter, React Native industry? Yes, very, very high. Very good future aspects. All web applications are made in Java only? No. Like, no, all web applications are not made in Java. Like Instagram is made on Python. Instagram is made on Python. Paytm is made on Java. If I have to talk about some other websites, there are many websites that are created on Node also, that is JavaScript. Some like Coding Ninjas is created on Ruby on Rails, which is on Ruby. So web applications can be made in different languages as well. Most financial and top-notch web applications prefer using Java because it is very fast, very secure, things like that. Kindly provide some links to learn coding. I will be, just drop me a text on my link. Python is useful for science. Yeah, yes. When to start learning AI, ML, data science? Whenever you feel like it, I think second year is a good time. And machine learning, okay. Any, actually other presenters ignored my questions. So, okay, but I'm not ignoring any questions, I think so. Python is useful for data science. Yes, it is. Is it advisable to learn two languages side by side? Yes, you can, but you can learn as many languages as you want. But always remember, or always try to keep one language which is your strong point. Okay, like in my case, when I was in college, I was good with Java and JavaScript, also somewhat Python, but I always kept Java as my primary language. So this helped me to frame my programming concepts really well in Java and then map them in order to execute the same logic in JS or Python. So you can learn as many languages as you want, but always try to keep one language as your primary. What about IoT? It's in the emerging side or Chaliga types. I don't really know a lot about IoT, so I would not be the right person to comment on it. Can you give some project ideas for resume? Well, it depends, Neeraj, on what field you like to create a project upon. So it's like that. So you have to tell me which field. Are you from BIT Sindri? Yes, I was from BIT Sindri. I graduated. What about cybersecurity in future? Very high scope. Only DSA and C++ or Java can give me good placement. I mean, yes, it can give you good placement. Some companies will take you. I mean, many companies will take you. So yes. Can a biotech branch do get MTech in ML? Yes, you can do MTech in ML using use effect. That is, use effect is a hook inside React. So I'm not sure why are you writing this here? I mean, I don't see the relevance. What about cybersecurity and blockchain in the future of industry, and what kind of job opportunities are available in India in cybersecurity? Well, in cybersecurity, you can be somebody who can fix security related threats or problems, or like detect security related issues. So these can be a few important things, or you can also understand why data breach is happening, what are the vulnerable points, how to fix them. These are the things which you can get in cybersecurity. So how to start contributing in open source? To start contributing to open source, you'll have to start learning about version control really well. So try to learn about Git, GitHub. And apart from that, you have to make understanding that if you want to participate in Google Summer of Code or KDE platforms or Linux contributions. So for that, whatever project you want to contribute in, you'll have to learn its tech stack. And then there are different ways of participating in Google Kickstart. It's just one YouTube search away. So I think that will be a better way to give you a guidance on all the other open source contributing repositories that you can have. Thank you, Bhupendra, for sharing my LinkedIn. I'm learning machine learning is a good place. it is good to place in good company. Yeah, it is fine. YT backend by Python. I don't know what that means. Is Fang overrated in India? Yes, it is. I think it is. Google from Python. I don't know what that means, Samrat. I think you'll have to give a little bit of context of what that means. I'm going to start learn a programming language, but I'm confused whether to start C or C++. As in college, they're teaching C lang. We go with C++. I mean, if you know C, all the logic of C is also valid in C++. So you're not losing anything. So if they're teaching C, but I will say that you go with C++. What about machine learning in future? It is very high scope. How important is it to get into an internship? I would not say it is very, very, very important. Without it, your life is over. It's not like that. But if you can get an internship, it can add extra value. If you can't, then it's okay. It's not like the end of the world. It's okay. How you learn fluent English? By consistently trying to speak in English. That's the answer. So yeah, that's the whole journey. Being very honest, the reasons why I learned fluent English was when I used to go to school. And in my school, somebody mentioned when I was a kid that there's a rule in school that you should always talk in English. And I just tried to abide by that rule. That's it. So I tried to speak in English as much as I could. And yeah, it just basically unfolded like that. So I had to deal with a lot of backlash, but over the time I understood that my English is good enough, and I used to participate in a lot of competition. So that's how I got better at English. But the worst part about speaking this English is that I had to go with a lot of backlash on a personal level. I'm not sure if I should be sharing this right now, but as a mentor or as somebody who's elder to you in age, or as somebody who is currently in the industry who understands the importance of things, I would say good communication skill can literally change your career upside down in a positive way, definitely. So having good communication skill is like having one of the most important skills today, because everybody else can do everything else, but not everybody else can also do it and explain. That is the most important or most strong part about communication. So I'm pretty sure there are much more qualified people than me to take your session today. But the reason why you're asking me this question, or the reason why you are asking me these many questions, or the reasons why you're even able to listen to me right now without getting bored, if you are not getting bored, is because I'm able to communicate. And this helps me in my life, and this will also help you in your life if you also pay some emphasis on communication. And it can be something really life-changing, trust me. So I have 100 new messages, and I'm pretty sure I can't answer all of these 100 new messages because we have already beyond time. So I will be sharing my LinkedIn ID so that you can message me on LinkedIn. And whatever questions that I was not able to answer, just drop me a text on LinkedIn and just mention that you were present in this session, and frame your question and drop me on LinkedIn, and I will try to answer them as soon as I can. I would really, really, really appreciate it if you can also follow me on LinkedIn and provide me with some feedback of the session. So that's basically it from my side. I hope you reach out to me on LinkedIn to ask your question. And no, you would not, you don't need LinkedIn Premium. Just send me a connection request or follow me on LinkedIn. And that's pretty much it. That's enough. So I will be accepting a connection request, and then you can send me a text. That's basically it. So yeah, that's pretty much it from my side. I really hope that you found this session insightful and interesting. And I really liked interacting with all of you guys. And I hope in future, I get to see all of you once again. So that's pretty much it from my side. And thank you very much for having me. So Bhupendra, over
Thank
to you.
you,
Please
sir.
take this ahead.
Thank you, sir, for joining us, guiding us. It was a wonderful, great session. And there was a lot to learn. Even I learned very much from you, as I am also from a CSC department looking for the placements. So guys, I hope you all enjoyed today's session. It was a great, wonderful session by the Santanu Shubham sir. And it's my request to all the participants, kindly don't forget to mark your attendance, as the link is already floating in the chat box, and kindly connect to us on our social handles to attend these type of a lot session. And we are coming with lots of session like this, and today is the last day of CodeFest of workshops. I hope you all enjoyed our CodeFest 2K21, and it was all thanks to Aurora team. It was a great hard work session, and yeah, as I can see, Shishir Sekhar Singh, I really enjoyed it. Okay, thank you very much for joining us and enjoying this session to participate in this Aurora CodeFest 2K21. And I hope, so all the best to everyone, and don't forget to connect us on our social handles, follow us on Instagram, subscribe our channels. Yeah, bye bye. to all. I hope you all do great.